AITA for canceling my wedding after my fiancé's ex toasted a baby I never knew about? My name is John. I am 31 years old, and I work as a nurse on a cardiac floor in Charleston, South Carolina. This basically means I am used to staying calm while everything around me falls apart. I had been with my fiancée, Emily, for 4 years. By the week of our wedding, I honestly thought the hardest part of our future was going to be agreeing on cabinet colors for the house we were saving for. The one normal thing I still had that week was my morning gas station coffee before shift change. Looking back, I think that was the last calm routine I had before my entire life cracked open at a dinner table. Emily was 29. She was organized in some ways and scattered in others. She was the kind of person who could make a perfect seating chart, but forget where she put her keys 5 minutes later. She worked in marketing for a local real estate company and had a huge family that treated every birthday, baptism, engagement, and cookout like a county-level event. Her mother, Linda, had been involved in every inch of the wedding. Her father, Robert, mostly nodded, carried boxes, and said, "Whatever keeps your mama calm." I knew Linda could be intense. I knew Emily sometimes gave people half-truths because she hated conflict. My sister Rachel used to call it soft lying, which Emily hated. I always thought Rachel was being too harsh. The wedding was supposed to be that Saturday in the spring. By Wednesday, my truck had turned into a mobile wedding office. I had a folder behind the passenger seat with vendor receipts, contracts, cancellation clauses, final balance confirmations, and a printed timeline Linda had edited so many times it looked like an air traffic control schedule. Emily said wedding planning made her feel like she could not breathe, so I handled most of the money side. I managed the venue, the catering balance, the photographer, the DJ, the shuttle service, and the farewell brunch. I was not thrilled about it, but honestly, paperwork is easier for me than arguing about napkin colors. That week, Emily was jumpier than usual. She had been emotional for months, but I kept telling myself it was wedding stress. She cried because the florist suggested cream roses instead of white. She snapped at me when I asked if she wanted me to come to a doctor's appointment she had mentioned for hormone stuff. She said, "Not everything has to be handled like one of your hospital charts, John." That hurt, but I let it go. I let a lot go. The first real warning sign came when she asked if Caleb could come to the rehearsal dinner. Caleb was her ex. They dated in their early 20s before I knew her. According to Emily, they had stayed close because Caleb grew up around her brother and her parents. I had met him 2 times. Both times, he was polite enough, but there was always this extra second in his handshake, like he was measuring me. Emily brought it up while we were eating takeout on the couch, surrounded by wedding favor boxes. She did not look at me when she said it. "I need to ask you something without you making it weird." That is never how a normal question starts. I put down my fork. "Okay, Caleb is going to be in town this weekend." I waited. "And Mom thinks it would be strange if he was not invited to the rehearsal dinner." I said, "Your ex-boyfriend?" She sighed like I had failed a test. "He is not just my ex. He is basically family. He and Tyler played baseball together. My parents have known him forever." "Is he invited to the wedding?" "No, just dinner. It would create more gossip not to invite him." I remember staring at the cardboard containers on the coffee table. We had lo mein, orange chicken, and one fortune cookie between us because the restaurant forgot the other one. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say I did not care if it made me look insecure. However, we were 3 days out from the wedding, and I did not want to be the guy policing a guest list because of someone's history. So I said fine, but I don't want drama. Emily smiled too quickly. "There won't be drama. Thank you for being mature about it." That word, mature, made me feel like any discomfort I had was childish. Later, Rachel called to ask if I needed help picking up the welcome bags. I mentioned Caleb because I was trying to make it sound normal out loud. She was quiet for a second and then said, "People don't invite old chapters to the rehearsal unless somebody is still reading them." I laughed it off. "You should put that on a mug." "I am serious." "I know, but it is one dinner." Rachel did not push. She just said, "Okay, but don't let anyone make you feel crazy for noticing what is obvious." The rehearsal dinner was at a polished restaurant near the historic district. It was the kind of place with exposed brick, white tablecloths, low lights, and servers who said, "Y'all," while refilling water glasses like nothing bad had ever happened in that room. Outside, the evening air was humid, the cobblestones were uneven, and tourists were taking pictures near the valet stand while our families walked and dressed like a wedding magazine spread. Inside, there were oyster trays on crushed ice, shrimp and grits in tiny bowls, steak medallions, sweet tea, local beer, and a dessert table with lemon bars and little pecan tarts nobody would touch later. Caleb was already there when I arrived. He wore a navy blazer and no tie, looking like he wanted to appear relaxed but not careless. He hugged Linda first. It was not a polite side hug, either. It was a familiar one. She held on to him with both hands and said, "Oh, honey, I am glad you made it." He said, "Would not miss it, Mama L." Mama L. Robert saw me hear it and immediately became fascinated with his water glass. Emily came up beside me and squeezed my arm. "Hey, you okay?" "Sure," I said. She looked relieved before I had given her any reason to be. Caleb shook my hand and said, "Big weekend, man." "Yeah," I said. "Sure is." He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. The seating arrangement bothered me. Caleb was not placed at the end with random family friends or old neighbors. He was seated close to Emily's family, between one of her cousins and an aunt, right across from Maya, Emily's maid of honor. He was not seated like a guest. He was seated like someone they had made room for. Mark, my best man, leaned over during appetizers and said quietly, "You good?" "Trying to be." "Say the word, and I will spill chowder on him." "It is Charleston. I think that is illegal." He grinned, but his eyes stayed on me. Mark and I had gone through nursing school together. He knew my calm voice. He also knew the difference between calm and okay. For the first 30 minutes, everything stayed just normal enough to make me feel stupid for being uncomfortable. Mark gave a toast about how I once slept through a smoke detector after 3 night shifts in a row. Rachel joked that I organized my sock drawer like a medication cart. People laughed. Emily smiled. I started to relax. Then Caleb stood up. He tapped his glass with a fork. This was already awkward because there was a loose plan for speeches, and he was not on it. Linda's head turned fast. Emily's hand tightened around her napkin. Caleb smiled like he had practiced. "I know I am probably not on the official schedule," he said, and people chuckled politely. "But I just wanted to say something quick. I have known Emily and this family a long time. Too long, probably." A few people laughed again. Not me. He talked about old cookouts, beach trips, Emily being stubborn, and how she once refused to leave a baseball game during a thunderstorm because she wanted funnel cake. It was personal, but not openly inappropriate. Still, he kept saying "we" when he talked about her family, and nobody corrected him. Then he lifted his glass toward Emily. "Emmy Lou, you have always had a way of making people rearrange their whole lives around your plans." The nickname landed wrong. It was not just that it was intimate. It was how easily he said it, like muscle memory. Emily went pale. Maya looked down at her lap. Linda brought a hand to her mouth before anything truly emotional had been said. Caleb kept going. Maybe he was nervous, maybe he was bitter, or maybe he thought he had the room. "I hope John knows what he is signing up for," he said with a little laugh. "And I hope he knows that some things are bigger than all of us now." That was when Linda started crying. It was not happy crying. It was not mother of the bride crying. It was panic crying. She whispered something, but the table was quiet enough that I heard it. "We just want what is best for the baby." Everything stopped. I do not mean that in a dramatic way. I mean forks stopped halfway to mouths. A server who had been approaching with a pitcher of water turned so smoothly you would think she had trained for hostage situations. Robert closed his eyes. Emily looked at Linda like she had just cut a wire on a bomb. I looked at Emily, then at Caleb, then back at Linda. I said, "What baby?" My voice came out steady. I think that scared Emily more than yelling would have. "John," Emily said, reaching for my wrist. "Can we talk outside?" "No." Her eyes flashed. "Please don't do this here." "I am not doing anything." I asked what baby. Linda dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. "This is not the time." It became the time when you mentioned a baby at my rehearsal dinner. A few people shifted. Someone coughed. Caleb's face changed slowly, looking like a man doing math and hating the answer. Emily leaned closer. "You are misunderstanding what you heard." "Then explain it." "Not here." I looked around the table. My family looked shocked. Her family looked caught. That difference told me more than anyone's words. I said, "No. Apparently, this table has more information than I do, so this table can sit through the questions." Rachel, sitting 2 seats down, did not speak. She just set her phone face down and looked straight at Emily. Mark leaned back slightly, scanning the room the way nurses do when a family meeting starts going bad. I asked Emily, "Are you pregnant?" She swallowed. "John, that is a yes or no question." Her lips parted, but no answer came. Linda said, "She was going to tell you." My stomach dropped in a very practical way, like missing a stair. I turned to Linda. "So you knew?" Linda's face hardened. "I am her mother." I looked at Robert. "You knew?" He stared at his plate. "I knew there was something." "Something," Rachel said quietly. I asked Emily again, "Are you pregnant?" She nodded once. The room seemed to shrink around me. I could hear the air conditioner. I could hear a fork clink somewhere near the bar. I could feel my tie against my throat. I said, "How long have you known?" Emily rubbed her forehead. "It is complicated." I almost laughed, but nothing was funny. "How long?" "A few weeks." "Who knew before me?" "John, please." "Who knew before me?" Linda said, "You are embarrassing her." I looked at Linda. I did not announce a baby at dinner. I asked what baby. Caleb put his glass down too hard. "Wait." Emily snapped, "Caleb, don't." He stared at her. "You told me he knew." That sentence changed the room more than Linda's had. Before that, there was still some tiny part of me trying to build a bridge. Maybe the baby was mine. Maybe she had panicked. Maybe her mother had pressured her. Maybe this was terrible, but not malicious. Then Caleb said that, and the bridge went out. Emily whispered, "Stop talking." Caleb's face had gone red, but not in a triumphant way. He looked embarrassed, angry, and used. "No," he said. "Don't put this all on me, Emily. You told me he knew enough." "Knew enough?" I asked. Emily stood halfway from her chair. "John, come outside with me." I stayed seated. "No. You are making this worse than it has to be. It is already exactly as bad as it is. I am just catching up." Caleb looked at me. For the first time all night, he did not look smug. He looked sick. "She said you knew there was a chance," he said. Emily made a small sound, almost like a warning. "A chance of what?" I asked, though I already knew. Caleb looked at Emily, then at Linda, then back at me. That the timing was complicated. The timing. That was the word that made the last few months rearrange themselves in my head. I thought about Emily canceling our wine tasting because she had a migraine, then getting angry when I offered to bring her ginger ale. I remembered the private calls that ended when I walked into the room, and the sudden weekend at Linda's house because she needed girl time. I thought about the locked bathroom drawer she said had bridal shapewear in it. I remembered the appointment reminder I saw on her phone for an OB/GYN office, which she brushed off as a referral for hormone issues. I also thought about the makeup bag I moved once while cleaning the sink. It had been heavier than it should have been, with a bottle inside that rattled like vitamins. I had treated every strange detail like a wedding stress symptom. Now they lined up like chart notes. I asked Emily, "Is there a chance the baby is not mine?" She started crying then. They were real tears, I think. However, tears are not answers. "I did not know how to tell you," she said. That was an answer. Somebody at the far end of the table whispered, "Oh my God." Maya pushed her chair back. Her eyes were wet. She looked at me and said, "I am sorry." Then she left the table so fast her chair bumped the wall behind her. Linda pointed at Caleb. "You had no right." Caleb laughed once, sharp and ugly. "Me? You all told me to come tonight and act normal." Robert finally said, "Everyone needs to breathe." Mark said, "I think everyone has been breathing around the truth for long enough." I glanced at him. His phone was in his hand, held low by his leg. He was not waving it around, and he was not escalating the situation. However, I knew Mark. He had started recording after Linda's comment, not for gossip, but because he could already see the narrative being built around me. Linda turned to me. "This is a family matter." I said, "I was supposed to be family in 2 days." Nobody had anything to say to that. Emily wiped her cheeks. "I was going to tell you after everything calmed down." "After the wedding?" She did not answer. "Emily, after the wedding?" I was scared. I leaned back. My whole body felt cold and hot at the same time, but my hands were steady. That happens sometimes in emergencies. Your emotions go somewhere else so your body can work. I realized, sitting there between shrimp and grits and untouched steak, that the worst part was not even the pregnancy. It was not even Caleb. It was that I had been managed. I was not loved through a hard truth. I was managed. They had meetings without me. They had conversations without me. They made a plan around me. I was being positioned as the stable husband who would absorb the impact after the legal commitment was done and the photos were taken. I reached into the inside pocket of my suit jacket and took out the envelope with the final venue payment. It was due the next morning, but I had brought it because Linda had reminded me twice that responsible people don't wait until the last minute. I placed it on the table in front of Emily. For the first time all night, she looked at something in my hand like it mattered. Then I picked it back up. "What are you doing?" she asked. I stood slowly. "I am stopping." Linda stood too. "You are not canceling this wedding over a misunderstanding." I looked at her. There is no misunderstanding. There is information I was denied. Emily grabbed the back of her chair. "John, please. We can talk. We can fix this." "No," I said. "We can discuss things people admit before a wedding. We cannot fix a plan that required me to find out by accident." Caleb said, "Don't walk away from a family situation." I looked at him. "You don't get to invite me into a family situation after I was the last one told there was one." His mouth shut. Linda's voice rose. "She is pregnant. You are humiliating a pregnant woman in front of everyone." "I am not punishing anyone for being pregnant," I said. "I am refusing to marry someone who needed a dinner accident to tell me." Emily cried harder. "You are being cruel." "I am being informed." I looked down the table, not making eye contact with any one person for too long. Every contract is in my name. The venue, the photographer, the DJ, the catering balance, the shuttle service, and the farewell brunch are under my account or my credit card. Anything still refundable gets canceled. Anything transferable gets transferred. If Emily wants a wedding, she can sign contracts with full information and full payment under her own name. Linda's face went blank in a way that almost looked more frightening than anger. Emily stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. "You can't do that," she said. "I can. I read what I sign." Rachel stood then. She did not rush to me or make a speech. She just picked up her purse and said, "He did not create this scene. He asked the first honest question all night." Mark stood too. "Give me your keys," he said quietly. "I am fine. You are not driving right now." He was right. Calm is not the same thing as safe to drive. I pulled my keys out and handed them to him. Before I left, I found our server near the side station. She looked like she wished she could disappear into the brick wall. "I am sorry," I said. "Can I pay for my side of the dinner and leave the tip for the full table?" She blinked, then nodded. "Of course." My hand shook while I signed the receipt. It made my signature look like bad handwriting, but I tipped her well. None of this was her fault. Outside, Charleston looked exactly the same. There was humid air and a cobblestone sidewalk. A couple was laughing near the valet stand. A horse carriage was turning the corner like my life had not just split in half inside a restaurant with good oysters. Emily followed me out. "John," she said. I turned. She was crying, with mascara under her eyes and one hand pressed to her stomach. For a second, the part of me that loved her wanted to step forward. 4 years is not nothing. 4 years teaches your body to respond when someone hurts. But then Caleb came out behind her. Emily spun around. "Leave me alone." He stopped. "Are you serious?" "Not now." He laughed, but it sounded broken. "You told me to come." I said not now. That was the moment another layer clicked. She was not choosing him, either. She was not choosing me. She was trying to keep both doors open long enough to avoid standing alone in the hallway of her own choices. Mark opened the passenger door of his truck. "John." Rachel was already outside, phone in her hand. She showed me a text message she had just sent to the family chat. It read, "John did not reveal a pregnancy. He asked why everyone else already knew about one. Do not contact him tonight unless he asks you to." Then she left the chat. Mark drove me to my apartment. I sat in the passenger seat with my tie loose while my phone buzzed nonstop. The messages kept coming. Emily texted, "Please answer. You don't understand what you heard." She followed up with, "I was going to tell you, and you embarrassed me in front of my family. Think about the baby." Her mother, Linda, texted, "You need to calm down and stop punishing my daughter." An unknown cousin said, "Real men don't abandon pregnant women." Finally, Emily begged, "Please, don't cancel anything yet." I sent Emily one text. "Put the truth in writing. Do not call me." She called anyway. I did not answer. In Mark's truck, before I even took off my tie, I sent the first cancellation email from my phone. I wrote, Due to a material change in circumstances, I need to cancel the event scheduled for Saturday. It sounded cold. I was grateful for cold. I sent one to the venue asking about refund options and transfer policies. I sent one to the photographer, one to the DJ, one to the shuttle company, one to the caterer, and one to the brunch restaurant. My thumbs moved like they belonged to someone else. Mark parked outside my building, but did not leave. Send the emails, he said. I will sit here. So I did. Around midnight, Maya texted me. She wrote, I am sorry. I thought you knew more than you did. You need to see this. Then screenshots started coming through. They showed a text conversation between Emily and Caleb. It was not enough to make a neat timeline, but enough to make the shape of it clear. Emily had written, I don't know what I'm doing. Caleb asked, does he know? Emily replied, he basically knows enough. Caleb told her that was not an answer. Then, Emily sent the message that explained everything. She wrote, if John still marries me, we can figure it out later. I just need this weekend to happen. Caleb asked what they needed to figure out. Emily replied, paternity. Us. Everything. Once it's done, everyone will calm down. Caleb told her she could not marry me like that. Emily's final response was, I need stability right now. Please don't make this harder. I read that one sentence 3 times because my brain kept trying to make it mean something else. If John still marries me, we can figure it out later. I was not the love of her life in that plan. I was the adult in the room she hoped would be too married to leave. Maya sent another message. She explained, Linda knew she hadn't told you directly. Emily told her you would spiral and ruin everything if she said it before the ceremony. I didn't know about Caleb until tonight. I swear I thought you knew there was at least a chance. I typed and deleted 5 replies before sending one. Thank you for telling me. Please don't send anything else tonight unless it involves contracts or safety. Then I took screenshots of everything and emailed them to myself. That is the nurse in me, I guess. Document first. Feel later. The next morning, I woke up after maybe 2 hours of sleep and saw 63 unread messages. The group chat named Wedding Weekend had become a courtroom where half the people did not know what trial they were attending. Linda had written a long message about privacy and a young woman in crisis. Emily's aunt said I was heartless for canceling over a medical situation. Someone else said weddings were stressful and I should not make permanent decisions while emotional. Rachel replied once. She wrote, John was not told about the pregnancy, the paternity uncertainty, or the plan to wait until after the wedding. Stop calling that stress. Then she left that chat too. I did not argue with anyone. I had enough actual work to do. The venue called first. The coordinator sounded careful, like she had seen weddings die before, but not always this close to the aisle. Because the final balance had not been paid yet, and because the event was still technically under my name, they could cancel the wedding package. Part of the deposit was non-refundable, but she offered to convert a portion into a private dinner within the next year. I asked if it could be used for my parents' anniversary later. She said yes. The photographer kept a retainer, which was fair. She had reserved the date and done engagement photos. The DJ refunded half. The shuttle service refunded almost all of it because I caught them inside the cancellation window. The brunch restaurant canceled without penalty because their manager, bless him, said, sounds like you have got enough going on. The florist hurt the most financially. It was too late for a full refund. Flowers had been ordered, arranged, and scheduled. So I asked if they could redirect the arrangements. Where? The florist asked. I looked around my apartment at the welcome bags, the stack of unused thank you cards, and the little sign Emily had bought that said, Forever starts here. I said, can you split them between the cardiac unit at my hospital and a local hospice? She paused. We can do that. That afternoon, my charge nurse texted me a picture of flowers at the nurse's station. There were white roses, greenery, and little blue accents Emily had chosen because she said they felt coastal. One of the older nurses had put a sticky note on a vase that said, for whoever needs these today. I stared at that picture longer than I expected. Emily's long email came the next evening. The subject line was, please read this before you erase us. It was long, messy, and somehow still avoiding the center of the problem. She said she was scared. She said she had made a mistake. She said she had not confirmed paternity yet and did not want to destroy what we had over something that might work out. She said Linda thought waiting until after the wedding would protect everyone from panic. She said she loved me. She said Caleb confused her. She said she knew it sounded bad, but she thought being married would make everything less chaotic. That line almost made me put my fist through the drywall. It was not because it was loud. It was because it was honest. She wanted marriage to trap the chaos inside a legal container and put my name on the lid. I did not write back the way I wanted to. I did not list every lie. I did not ask how she could do this. I did not call her names. I forwarded the email to the attorney I had contacted that morning. The attorney was not dramatic. He did not tell me I could sue the whole family or that I had some grand case. He talked about deposits, documentation, shared accounts, ring return records, written communication, and not making threats in text messages. It was exactly what I needed: boring, useful reality. Do not negotiate emotionally, he said. Keep everything in writing. So I did. Emily tried to come by my apartment 2 times. I did not open the door. The second time, Rachel happened to be there helping me box up wedding items, and she spoke through the door. He asked for writing, she said. Respect that. Emily cried in the hallway for a few minutes. I sat on the floor in my bedroom with a box of monogrammed cocktail napkins and hated every second of it. However, I did not open the door. A few days later, I returned the ring through the jeweler's documented process. It was not some dramatic pawnshop moment. There was a receipt, an inspection, a return record, and a small penalty. Life apparently charges fees even when your heart is already breaking. I boxed Emily's belongings and had Rachel drop them at Linda's house. Emily sent one more email after that, which was shorter than the first. She wrote, "I know you hate me. I don't know who the father is yet. I am sorry I made you feel like a backup plan. You were never supposed to find out that way." I sat with that one for a while. The sentence that mattered was not the apology. It was feel like. It was as if the injury was my interpretation and not her design. I sent one final text message. "I hope the baby is healthy. I hope you tell the truth from now on. I am not available to be part of the lie." Then I blocked her. The wedding did not happen. There were consequences, though not the kind people fantasize about online. Emily's family did not collapse into public shame. Caleb did not become some noble truth teller. Linda still told versions of the story where I was cold and unforgiving. Some people believed her because some people prefer a simple villain over a complicated mess. However, screenshots are hard to argue with. So are witnesses. So is a room full of people remembering that I found out about a baby by asking, "What baby?" at my own rehearsal dinner. Maya stepped back from Emily for a while. Caleb, from what I heard, demanded paternity testing before making any promises. Robert sent me one text 3 weeks later. He wrote, "I should have said something. I am sorry." I did not respond. Maybe that was petty. Maybe it was mercy. I had no space left for men who knew enough to be ashamed, but not enough to intervene. Months passed. I deleted the wedding countdown from my phone. I returned gifts. I changed passwords. I took my name off shared plans. I donated the leftover welcome bag snacks to the break room, where night shift nurses ate custom-labeled bags of pralines at 3 a.m. without asking too many questions. I went back to work. The first time I walked onto the cardiac floor after everything, I expected to feel embarrassed. Instead, I felt tired in a clean way, like the exhaustion after a hard shift where at least you did the right thing. My coworkers had seen the flowers. They knew enough. Nobody made speeches. One nurse named Denise handed me a gas station coffee and said, "It is terrible, but it is hot." That almost broke me. I still think about the dinner sometimes. I do not think about it constantly, but in flashes. I see Linda's napkin twisting in her hands. I hear Caleb saying, "You told me he knew." I picture Emily looking at the envelope like it was the first real consequence she could understand. I remember the server disappearing with the water pitcher and Rachel's voice saying he asked the first honest question all night. For a while, I wondered if I was too calm. I wondered if a better man would have stayed and talked privately, or if I should have given Emily one more chance before stopping the wedding machine. But then I remember the order of things. She did not come to me with a hard truth. She let me sit in a room where other people knew more about my future than I did. She was willing to let me make vows without informed consent because postponing the truth was easier for her than respecting me. I am still hurt. I am not confused anymore. I still drink bad gas station coffee before shift change. The difference is, now when something tastes wrong, I stop drinking it. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.